This episode is brought to you by Robert Stevens Jewelers. Thank you to our sponsors for your support on our first season of the Alter Ego podcast. Now a word from our sponsor, BetterHelp. For a long time, I suffered with depression and anxiety. I had tried therapy before, but struggled finding a therapist I connected with until I found BetterHelp. That's why I am so excited to share BetterHelp's mission to make therapy more affordable and more accessible. Because finding a therapist can be hard, especially when you're limited to the options in your area. BetterHelp is a platform that makes finding a therapist easier because it's online. Remote therapy sessions, and by filling out a few questions, BetterHelp can match you to a professional therapist in as little as a few days. It's easy to sign up and get matched with a therapist. Click the link in description and receive 10% off your first month of BetterHelp. And by clicking that link, you support this channel. Plus, you can easily switch to a new therapist at no additional cost without stressing about insurance, who's in your network, or anything like that. I was struggling for a long time, and BetterHelp was where I found my therapist, Whitney, who I still see weekly for almost 2 years now. So, if you're struggling like I was, consider online therapy with BetterHelp. Click the link in description or go to betterhelp.com/alterego. That's better, HELP.com/alterego. There's no better time than now to start your mental health journey. Thank you again, BetterHelp, for supporting this channel. Hi, welcome to the podcast. So I'm going to get right into this. I sat down with Jason Kennedy today. We went to high school together. He was a year ahead of me at Butler. And we ran into each other a few months ago. I was picking up lunch up at Rachel's. And he was having lunch. And he recognized me from the podcast. We started chatting. He told me what he does. And I said, we should have you on the podcast. We had a few conversations before today's episode. It ended up just being a conversation. We talked about a lot of different things. The focus this month is men's health, November, bringing awareness to that, but it's also bringing awareness to making men talking about their feelings manly again. Not to say that it never was manly. I think that oftentimes it is put out there into society that it's not manly. Now, this doesn't mean that you've got to put all your feelings on social media and put everything out for everybody to know every little thing about you. That's not what we're saying. But what we're saying is that if you are going through something, the only way to go through is to go through. I just repeated myself. You've got to go through the things. And a part of that process is talking to whoever it is. He had mentioned to me, we ran into each other again at Community Champion Award luncheon last Friday at BC3. And he had said about how, he makes a point to talk to his wife about how he's feeling. And I think that is such an important message for us to really focus on. I know a lot of this is repetitive. I'm not a man, so I can't speak to a man's point of view. But I want to bring the focus to that, to the mental health side of that, and to Movember. So without further ado, I'm just going to get right into this episode. We go all over the place, but we had a great conversation. He works in a field that taking care of his mental health is so important, because when you're dealing with people who are going through oftentimes the hardest part of life, losing someone, you probably don't recognize how much you are sort of avoiding your own sort of feelings or mortality. He didn't go too deep, but what he recognized is that when it does come to his feelings and things that are going on in his life, that he goes deep. And that's a vulnerability that I really appreciated about our conversation. So let's get to it with Jason Kennedy. Jason Kennedy, funeral director at Thompson Miller Funeral Home. I think that's so interesting. I don't know.
Well,
what was, I have to ask you, we're just going to start. So
sure.
So we went to high school together, but you graduated a year before me from Butler. You were born and raised in Butler. You graduated from Teal College with a BA in Business Administration. And then you graduated from the Pittsburgh Institute of Mortuary Science. What was that like?
So when I was in school for it, it was really difficult. It was 63 credits in 1 year of time.
Wait, what?
For real.
So wait, did you go through the summer too?
I did.
Okay.
Yeah, and the
Well,
way
that
it
helps,
worked
I guess.
with Teal was I was able to do 3 years at Teal and do all my credits there and get my bachelor's in 3 years. And then, like in 2001, I went down to Pittsburgh Institute of Mortuary Science.
Okay.
It was an experience, to say the least. My mom and dad, we didn't like grow up with a ton of money or anything. So like after I got done with Teal, went down to the Institute of Mortuary Science, but I lived in a funeral home with like 5 other dudes.
What?
For real. Yeah, that were like all in mortuary school together. We lived on the 3rd floor of this funeral home.
That's so cool.
It was
I think that's cool.
It was different because I didn't grow up with any family in the business. Again, my dad worked at the mill. My mom was a stay-at-home mom.
Yeah.
It was just one of those things where I decided to do this, figured like, oh, this will be cool. Like I'd have to really screw up to get fired. No one wants to do this, you know?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's got to be a tough job.
From time to time, it is. But like mortuary school was all right. Like it taught me a lot, but more than anything, I believe that being on the job, just like with anything else in life, really gets you acclimated to what you need to do.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's kind of where it is. And I'm fortunate enough to be where I'm at down at Thompson Miller Funeral Home here in Butler. I mean, super good family, always been super kind to me. I job shadowed there when I was in high school, actually.
Oh, so what did that entail?
So it was just like one day. Remember like when we were in high school when you could go like almost like take your kid to work day?
Yeah.
I just did a job shadow and went down there and just kind of spent the day like watching and seeing what they did.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, that's really interesting to me. I mean, this did come up with us the other day, but whenever we first reconnected, so we, like I said, we went to high school together, but you know, when we went to Butler, how many graduated in your class? Do you remember?
It was probably like between 750 and 800
yeah.
at the time,
Yeah.
somewhere in that area.
I think we were like in the 600s or something
Yep.
when I graduated, and I don't think they're that big now, right? Are they
No,
smaller?
they're not. It's probably 450. I'm throwing out complete numbers here.
These
that I
are
have
not
no idea.
facts.
Right.
So,
yeah,
this
so don't listen to
but
me. I'm just a funeral director.
I've heard that though, and I think that's why they were able to sort of like combine the schools or condense, because now the senior high school, where it was just 11th and 12th when we went there, is now 9th through 12th. And then they have, is it 6, 7, and 8 at the intermediate?
That's,
or is it,
yeah, I think it goes to 5th grade in like elementary schools.
Okay.
Like kindergarten through 5th. And then you go to the intermediate, then up to the senior.
Yeah. Because we had the experience of down here, the junior high. Do you remember half day Fridays and going to the Butler hot dog shop?
I do.
That was like the greatest thing ever.
Yep.
That was
I
like,
actually just brought them up the other day. I was with a family and they were like talking about all this stuff. And the one dude goes, he's like, "You're not writing anything down." I was like, "Hey man," I was like, "I'm like waitresses at the hot dog shop." I was like, "I got this." Remember how they used to never write a thing down?
yeah, and they
Ever.
got everything right.
Yeah, like 5 hots, pickle also. Like it was crazy.
Oh, pickle also. I miss that place. Like the booths were
too.
so tight,
Yep.
but we didn't care, right? We'd like all slide in
That
and
orange gravy on the fries.
yeah. You know, I think I have that
Forget
recipe
it.
somewhere. I got that from somebody. If I find it, I'll let you know.
Please do.
Football Sunday,
Yeah.
Butler hot dog shop. Well, I mean, the one that they have over here now that's near Snack and Pack, is that supposed to be like the same or is it different? It's just
I don't eat a lot of hot dogs anymore, to be
well,
honest.
I don't either. Yeah.
I really don't.
Well, part of what we're talking about is, you know, mental health and taking
Right.
care of ourselves. So no knocking anyone who loves to eat hot dogs, but I mean, in moderation, right?
Sure.
Like if I was invited right now to go to a tailgate in Pittsburgh, someone offered me a hot dog and a beer, like, yeah, I'm doing that at a football game. Totally.
100%.
But that's not what I'm like making for dinner.
No.
However, again, I think we are in times right now where maybe that's what people have to do because that's what they can afford.
No doubt.
I like to be, you know, understanding of that, although we have a lot of really great food banks in Butler Did you know that?
I do. Like, I mean,
Like
every day of the week.
every day of the
Every
week.
day
I
of the
mean,
week.
and I tell people that all the time.
There's a couple right by the funeral home. You know, I know First English does that. And,
Yep. We're going
First
down
United-
so many
yeah,
paths,
we're-
but
we're
this
not
is
gonna
good.
go there. Right,
But
right.
this is good. It's good to say. I just like to let people know, like, I'm not judging. I'm not knocking anyone. Like, if that's what you can.
No, I mean, I love a hot dog. I just
Yeah.
don't. I'm built
Yeah.
for comfort.
Yeah.
Like, look at me. Like, I don't need any more hot dogs.
You're like, I'm good. I don't eat
Right.
hot dogs. I just think it's really fascinating what you do, and it's not an easy thing because another conversation we had too was Thompson Miller Funeral Home was where my father was, where we had his services, and this would have been 95. So
Yeah, so, I mean, that's really dating you and I. That's like 30 years ago almost.
yeah, that's definitely dating
That's
us.
crazy.
Have
I
you
don't
s-
feel that old.
Have you seen those shirts that have the it looks like the wagon from the Oregon Trail game, and it said I was born in the 1900s. Have you seen that? I'm like, I want that shirt. It's funny though because, and I don't know if that's what kids who were born in 2000s, like if they think that, but I don't know. I kind of would. I mean, my grandmother was born in the early 1900s, so I guess I think. It's just so interesting. It was such a different time. And it was when we're the last generation that didn't have cell phones.
We took typing on typewriters, man.
Yes. Remember how you had to do that and you had to be looking at the thing and typing?
Yep.
You weren't allowed to look at the typewriter?
Yep. Every good boy does fine. Or
Wow.
now is the time
did-
for all good men to come to the aid of their party. That was what it was.
you
Every good
remember
boy
all
does.
that?
Well, that
Yeah.
was typing.
Yeah.
Yeah, Mrs. Morrison. She was awesome.
Wow. You even remember the teacher? I'm
I
like,
do.
yeah.
Yeah.
I don't remember.
Yeah. Every good boy does fine is music.
I do.
That's
yes.
on my brain.
Yes.
all the
Every
time.
good boy does fine is
Yeah,
music.
that's
Yeah.
music stuff.
Yeah. So, the business that you're in probably makes you think, and I don't know, I'm asking you this. I'm not assuming. I wasn't saying that correctly. Does it make you sort of think about your own like mortality at all, or do you not go that deep very often?
No, I go like way deeper, to be honest. One of the things though that's on my mind, and if I may real quick, so like when that time in 95 that you lost your dad and you went down to Thompson Miller, like that was certainly absolutely unexpected.
Yeah.
And how did going to that place when you didn't want to be there, how did those individuals like make your mom and your brothers and more important, like you, how did they treat you to make you feel during that time?
From what I can remember, because there's a lot from that I know that I've sort of blocked out, if that makes sense.
Sure.
So the day he passed away, I remember I was homesick from school that day, and I got the phone call and just heard that he had been hurt at work. I didn't know he had had a heart attack. The guy wasn't giving me a lot of information. And my mother at the time was working, I don't remember if she was down in Pittsburgh, but she had a pager. And I told this guy, here's her pager number, you have to page her. And he had paged her like 3, 4, 5 times. And then I paged her and she called the house and she's like, oh, some random number. I said, yeah, a random number. Dad was hurt at work. You need to call that phone number. I don't know what's going on. And so then it came to be where my brother came home and my oldest brother and his wife were already at the hospital, I guess. And they called us and said, your father had a heart attack. We're not sure yet what's going on. We're on our way to the hospital now. And then within not even 10 minutes, by the time they got there, they called us and they said, you need to come up here. So we head up there thinking, my brain is like, my dad's going to be in a hospital bed,
Totally.
hooked up to machines, up and down moving the bed up and down, joking around, right? And instead we come and we tell them who we are and they walk us around this corner, and I'll just never forget. And the emergency room entrance at Butler is different now because they've changed it. But I remember walking in and going right, like almost directly right, and they open this door and we walk in this room and an entire extended family, like everyone is in there and they're all crying. And we were the last 2 to show up. And I just remember my mom saying, well, he's in a better place now. And they started coming towards me and I backed up. I was like, well, what does that mean?
Sure.
Like what?
I can't imagine. At
Yeah.
all. No.
And so my brothers and my mom were going to go see his body. And I was really quiet. I didn't just start sobbing right away. I wasn't like hysterical. I just kind of was numb. And I remember saying, well, I'm going to go. And they're like, no, no, no. And I said, I'm not asking. I'm going. I need to see his body. And everybody just stood there. And I said, I'm not asking. I'm coming with you. And I remember seeing his body. And that's probably the only time I've ever seen, a dead body, because everyone protects you from that, right? And it's like, I remember seeing his body and then thinking, that's like not him. It was just it was a weird experience. Like, I looked at him and I'm like, that's his body, but it just looked so strange to me. I mean, when someone has a heart attack, his heart basically exploded. He was blue. Like, his whole body was kind of like a blue color.
Well, my dad had a massive heart attack down at the mill. This was 11 years ago.
I'm sorry.
And it's okay. I still have my dad. So first and foremost, like, you're super cool for sharing that story. That's really hard to do. And I'm not trying to take you back there. It's just more about,
I'll get to I didn't answer your question.
Right?
Yeah.
It's okay.
I'm getting there. Like, I go down paths.
It was we all do.
Yep.
So it was like 11 years ago, and my father was at the mill. It was a Friday. My wife and my oldest daughter at the time, my wife's from out eastern PA, they were heading out there to visit her mom and dad. And it was a Friday night, and I was like, well, I'm going to go out with a couple buddies, and we're going to go have a nice time. My mom called and said, hey, your dad's on the way to the hospital. He was down getting a physical at the mill, no joke.
Wow.
And they saw something on the EKG when they were doing that, and they took him up to the Butler hospital. But my dad called my mom on his cell phone. He's like, hey, going to the hospital, yada, yada.
Yeah.
Long story short, we get to the hospital, and my dad was like gray. And the doctors were like, hey, your dad's having a massive heart attack right now, but we need to go in and do open heart surgery. So we had to sign all these papers, and it was basically like, expect your dad not to make it.
Wow.
And we did that, and, knock on wood, my dad did make it. My dad's still here. But I don't understand the flip side of that coin, the way you and your family went through it. I haven't, fortunately, I haven't been there yet.
Yeah.
But I'm going to get there, and that's where, like, we all do.
Yeah.
And we certainly have to face those things.
Mm-hmm.
And you kind of mentioned where you were like, nope, I'm going in. But we do try to shade it. We try to hide it or mask the fact that, like, what's truly going on isn't really going on. You can deal with that later.
Yeah, and I think and I don't know if that was like our generation growing up, because like I didn't go to therapy after that. And like I told you, when I moved back here 3 years ago, I was not in a good place mentally. So
it's awesome having you back here, by the way.
Thank
and
you.
It's super cool to see you. And thank you so much for allowing me to be
Yeah.
here with you to talk.
Well, just to catch people up, I went into Rachel's, would you say it was March?
Oh, man.
March.
I don't even remember when that was. It was just like right at lunchtime.
Yeah, it was lunchtime, and you were having lunch at the bar, and I was picking up lunch.
Yep.
And we kind of looked at each other, and I was like, I feel like I know. And you're like, hey, are you that girl that does the podcast at the Butler Eagle? And I was like, oh no. I was like, oh no. Is there some, because you just don't know. I don't know if people like it. I'm sure there's a lot of people that don't like me or can't stand my voice or whatever.
Why?
And I don't know, because
Why do you think that
because
way?
I grew up a dancer, okay, and I danced professionally, and I worked in fitness professionally, and there's a lot of criticism in the life that I have lived up to this point. I'm used to it. I think it's that hope for the best, prepare for the worst sort of thing. And it's just the way that it is. I mean, I get feedback. For sure all the time. And I'm like, okay. But I'm sort of one of those people that I'm like, I understand feedback from just like a common like listening perspective, correct? But when I start getting feedback when it comes to how I'm doing things in a specific way, it's like, okay, well, be my guest.
Yeah, feel free to come on in here and do it yourself.
Feel free to do what I do, because I don't like to, and I'm not saying I don't do this, I don't like to tell other people how to do their jobs. I don't know. I just feel I'll ask questions if something seems like I'm like, oh, that's interesting. Why do you do that? Or what is, sometimes I turn into a 5-year-old where I'm asking all these
and
why
that's
questions.
where like our day and age now, and I'm such an old at this point, really.
An old.
I am.
That's funny.
It's so true though. And even though mentally I don't feel that way, I just know based on like how times, we grew up like taking the 20-foot phone cord into the bathroom and calling people in the bathroom while we're sitting there on the throne.
Yes.
Nowadays, like everything's different.
Yeah.
And that's where we are in old. Like no one knows even how to dial one of the like rotary phones, okay?
Oh, yeah.
And in the profession that you've chosen to be in, you're kind of a public person. And you're putting stuff out there publicly to actually get feedback or at least clicks or views or whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
But having to see that all the time is extremely difficult because most people, they won't give you the attaboy. They're going to give you the...
I liked it, but...
but. Everything before the but. You know what that is.
Everything before the but. However... It's like a fancier way of saying but.
Yep.
And I'm like, so you're taking back the first part of that statement? Because that's how that feels.
It's just so easy for people to do that anonymously. And like if someone really disagreed with you, but yet would be like, you know what, I'm coming in there, I'm going to sit in that seat right beside her, and I'm going to call her out on it face to face, they wouldn't do it. And that's where like that messes with you upstairs.
Ion Sports Podcast is proudly participating in Movember's annual fundraising campaign, which encourages people to sign up at Movember.com, grow a mustache, move to commit to walking or running 60 miles, host a virtual event, or mow your own way.
Mow Your Own Way is a choose-your-own-adventure activity and allows people to pick how they want to support Movember. The new challenge could include riding your motorcycle across the country or doing 100 burpees and allows supporters to participate and not be limited by what they want to do.
All the support will change the face of men's health, raising funds and awareness for mental health and suicide prevention, prostate cancer, and testicular cancer.
The Ion Sports Podcast team, along with Butler Eagles sports writers, have a goal to raise $1,000 for the month of November. The charity raises funds to deliver innovative breakthrough research and support programs that enable men to live happier, healthier, and longer lives. Committed to disrupting the status quo, millions have joined the movement, helping to fund over 1,250 projects around the world.
In addition to tackling key health issues faced by men, Movember is working to encourage men to stay healthy in all areas of their life, with a focus on men staying socially connected and becoming more open to discussing their health in significant moments in their lives.
The charity's vision is to have everlasting impact on the face of men's health. To donate or learn more, please visit Movember.com. Movember is a registered 501c3 charity. To donate to our fundraising goal, click the link in our story or bio. Help us at Alter Eagles Eye on Sports reach our goal of $1,000 towards Movember for men's health.
On behalf of myself, Eagles sports writer and host Derek Pito.
I am Eagles sports writer Brendan Howe.
And I'm Eagles sports editor Jake Murda Adams.
Thank you.
Because you have to be strong enough to realize that you're fighting the good fight. You're here to advocate for betterness, not worse.
Yeah, I'm sort of, and I say this to people all the time. Sometimes I get a little exhausted with it. I've been thinking about this recently where I say, like, I'm not perfect. I'm not trying to be perfect, but I am trying to do this to the best of my ability and sort of trust myself in the process. And it's new. It's a new thing here. Now, they had, I think in 2020, they started a podcast for Butler Business Matters. And the girl that was doing it was full-time up in the newsroom doing social media stuff. So she had a lot of other responsibilities. And they were only allowing her to do one episode a month. And then the sports guys, I went back and looked, they had a sports podcast for 2 years, but they were only covering high school football. So they were only doing it in the fall for high school football and only putting it on Spotify because those were the resources they had. The people that they had to do it, that was that. And when I came in here pretty aggressively, I was like, no, that's not going to work for me. And I said that to my boss and she agreed with me. And I said, if we're going to do this, They need to cover other sports. They need to, that's fine. They need to do this all year round. Not that we're not going to take breaks. You know, might be certain times where it's like, hey, in the summer, let's take a break, and we'll let our audience know. But we need to be covering more stuff, you know? Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
You have a cough button. What's going on?
No, I don't. I have applause. I have crickets. I have a trombone.
That's okay.
I got all
Crickets would've
kinds of
been
stuff.
great,
Yeah.
though. Yeah.
I mean, I could hit the twinkle button when you. Do you want me to? I mean, these are fun.
Oh, it sounds magical, doesn't it?
It does.
Yeah.
There's
Jason's
even.
coughing. That's so magical.
Yeah. So next time you cough, let me know. I'll just hit that button.
That'd
I
be
think
great.
that's funny, right?
All right.
Or I could do that one.
That fits better.
That fits.
Yeah, it definitely fits
Yeah, let's
better.
do the
Yeah,
trombone.
uh-huh.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
But I want to go back to the question you asked me because I didn't answer it. From what I can remember from there, because there's certain things I remember. Like I remember wanting to see his body. I remember the next thing I remember was sitting at the dining room table, people watching me eat. You know, and at this point it was dark. I think we went to the hospital around 1 or something like that. It was like midday, and then I remember going up to my bedroom and having a really crazy experience right before I went to bed. Like, wow. Like, do you believe in guardian angels? And it's okay if you don't. You're not going to hurt my feelings.
It's hard to say. Like,
yeah.
I definitely think that. I guess the short answer would be, yeah, I do. And like based on when my grandparents passed away, and just certain little things that they're inexplicable, right?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
So continue, please.
So like they'll say sometimes, you know, like if you see a red bird, like when I found out my grandmother had passed away, I was in Tennessee. She was 96. I didn't get to see her before she died. And I was really sad. And I went out on the back porch and I looked over and 2 red birds landed on a wire. And some people wouldn't think anything of that. But there are a lot of people that believe that, you know, that's like and I thought that's her and my grandpa and they're
Big
together
time.
again.
Big
Because
time.
she was very old school where, I mean, she read the Butler Eagle every single day, front to back. And she, after my grandfather died, that was it for her. She didn't want to meet another man. She didn't want to go out and find someone. That was just how she felt. And I have another friend that feels that way, Isla. She said, I said till death do us part, and that means me too. And I'm the type of person, who am I to tell someone that's not right? I don't know if I'm making any sense. This is how
you're also not the person to tell someone that. Like,
yeah,
for sure.
I just don't. And I'm going off on something where I feel like where we are right now as a society is that there's just so much judgment. And most of the judgment is because someone wouldn't live their life that way, or they don't believe in that. That's fine, but who are you to tell that person that that's not what they believe?
Hurt people hurt people.
Yeah.
And that's legit. There's no denying that. Mm-hmm. And it kind of goes back to like the feedback. It's just all that stuff. Like why people have to do it that way is beyond me. Sure, there are certain instances that warrant criticism.
Yeah.
There's no doubt.
Yes.
Right? But what we seem to criticize is we make a lot of mountains out of molehills anymore. Mm-hmm. There's no real reason to.
Yeah. Do you think it's like we can't survive without conflict or without drama, or does that make sense?
We're just in a day and age of drama. Like everyone is their own celebrity now.
Oh, yeah. That makes sense.
You know, and quite frankly, like you grew up in music, as did I, and like that's what my wife does, and my oldest daughter's real into that.
Yeah.
And it's called Drama Club.
Yeah, it was a festival.
Right? Like that totally was
Yeah.
what it was called.
Yeah.
And now you kind of fast forward here where we're all like, we got our little cameras and we can make ourselves look cool and we can do all these filters and stuff.
I mean,
And
did you watch the fight?
I did. I wasn't into it. I was more into that chick fight, though.
Oh.
Holy cow.
Okay, Serrano was robbed. I'm sorry.
100%. She was getting headbutted like beyond belief.
Well, that's
I
that
have
girl's
a picture of it on my phone.
Yeah,
I showed
that's
my
that
wife. I
girl's
was like, "Look at
motive.
this."
That's that girl's motive. That's what
Unreal.
she does. But the
Yep.
thing is the points. The points showed, and statistically they favor the champion. And I'm like, well, then why do we have points? If it's a popularity contest and you're just gonna be like, well, do you know what I'm saying? Like, how does someone become a champion if you never give them the opportunity? Not that Serrano hasn't won. I immediately was like, nope, that's not right.
She answered things like, what was crazy is I actually had to go pick up my daughter that night. She went to Applebee's with some friends after she went to the play at Butler. And it was like 11 o'clock, and I was like, look, we could like watch this fight when we get home. And she's like, nah, I'm going to go to bed. And I was like, that's fine.
Yeah.
So I was watching those girls fight, and then at the very end of it, they kind of called the winner out, and were like,
Katie,
you headbutted her and all this stuff. I don't remember the names, forgive me.
I can't remember her last name
No.
either. I just remember the first name, Katie.
And
yeah.
she was
okay.
just like this and that, and they were like, well, you shouldn't have done that, and blah, blah, blah. Well, then they get to Serrano, who is like, had to have like probably, what do you think, 30 stitches in her face?
Oh, yeah.
Holy
I've had
cow.
listen, I had this eye cut open that bad, and that's a gnarly, I don't know how she kept fighting.
She just kept going. And then, like, when she, like, answered the questions at the end, you talk about mental toughness and fortitude and just having that belief in that will. She totally had it. She went out on top even though she lost.
Mm-hmm.
And she didn't get all offended by what was going on there. She just said her piece.
Yeah, you could tell her face. She was like, okay.
Yeah, she was upset.
Oh, yeah.
No doubt.
She was robbed. I'm sorry. I
agree.
Hands down.
I agree.
And the reason I wanted to kind of, that just popped up because this is what I'm doing. I'm jumping all over the place. To answer your question, yes.
Isn't it fun, though?
All I can remember, it is.
Yeah, it's way better that way.
All I can remember from Thompson Miller, I never at any point felt like I want to get out of here. I don't want to. It felt warm. It felt inviting. We felt taken care of. Like, I don't remember anything. I kind of blocked a lot of stuff out. It's like those scenes. If you see a scene in the movie where someone is being, a doctor sitting across from them and basically reading a chart and telling them they have cancer, and in the movies, and everything just starts to go. I kind of felt like most of my experience there was that. I remembered a few people walking up to me and things they said, and I'm like, what?
Well, people don't know what to say.
They don't know what to say. And I can understand that now as an adult. But when someone walks up to a 14-year-old and says,
is that how old you were?
Yeah. I said that once on Facebook. I don't know if I've brought this up before. I had posted an anniversary thing. I don't really do that anymore. I haven't done that in a long time. But sometimes on Instagram, I'll post a picture of him and just say, missing you today and can't wait till I see you again, whatever. But, and it kind of depends on how I'm feeling. But I remember posting something and a girl that I worked with in New York City, commented, but then someone that was a friend of hers on Facebook, who wasn't even a friend of mine, it was like the young age of 14 ? What does that even mean? And part of me wanted to say, why are you even commenting? Hurt people. But here's a person who doesn't even know me. And I said, okay, maybe at 14, I had to grow up. I mean, I was doing my own laundry when I was like 10. So if you want me to go through the resume of all the things I was doing, I can give it to you, but I shouldn't have to do that. Like, why can't we just be kind? Why can't we just if you don't have anything nice to say, just don't say anything.
Don't say it. And that's the same, whereas sometimes people, when they don't know what to say, they just start saying.
Yeah.
And it's like, maybe just don't say nothing. And that's something I'll share with families from time to time based on the situation at hand, right?
Yeah.
Certain situations are different. You mentioned your grandma down in Tennessee. She was 96.
Well, she was up here. I was in Tennessee. Sorry to interrupt you, but
on.
I couldn't come up here and see her.
Okay.
So, yeah.
But in that situation, my goodness, what a great life hopefully she had.
Yes.
But when those things are cut short, or when there is a situation where maybe it's out of the ordinary, so to speak, or newsworthy, that's where people will sometimes fail to use their own best judgment and just be like, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
And I see that a lot. And there's times when I'll warn families, hey, look, there might be some people that are coming in almost just to come in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's tough. And I think, part of the reason why we wanted to talk, like when we ran into each other, whenever that was back in the spring, and you remembered me from high school, and then you knew I was doing the podcast, the minute you said Thompson Miller, I was like, I should have him on the podcast. And then this month, my focus is Men's Health Movember. We've talked briefly about that.
I'm sorry I didn't shave.
It's fine.
My wife would.
Your wife?
No,
hey,
she wasn't.
her opinion matters more than
I look like my dad.
I had asked him. You're not ready to go there yet?
No, I'm not.
You're not ready.
No.
Okay, that's fine. You don't owe me nothing. We had talked about that, and you're like, my wife's not going to like that. And I was like, hey, you figure that out, and if you can't, that's fine. But we saw each other at the Community Champion Award ceremony last week for Geyser Center, and the minute I saw you, I was like, oh my gosh, this is the way this was meant to be. This was the time you're supposed to come on. And we had started talking. I don't know if I had mentioned Movember to you yet, but you had said that you have recognized recently that you need to start like getting back to the gym and working out again because your mind needs it. So how comfortable are you talking about that a little bit more and
Sure.
like what that means?
We're all human beings.
Mm-hmm.
We all struggle. I don't, more than anything, you never know what someone else is going through. My profession, I see that all the time. It's like, oh man, I got to go in today. But like, think about what that family's dealing with on the other side of the coin.
Yeah.
Right? It is what it is with that. And there's some times where you try to forget things, like you said, you just kind of like push it to the back. But more than anything, I think you need to recognize those things. Mm-hmm. And you need to recognize that we can all struggle and that from time to time we all have bad days. We're going to be human beings. You mentioned you don't know how much like I dive deep into stuff, but part of some of my issues from time to time is I dive too deep into things.
Yeah.
I think about them too much, and then it's like the paralysis of the analysis, so to speak. When in all actuality, I should just get to that gym and count to 10 and just like focus on counting to 10 for your reps or whatever you're doing. Mm-hmm. And that's just one of those things that life gets busy, schedules get busy.
Yeah.
And it's way easier to make excuses than it is to go to do it. It's way easier to not do than to do.
Yes.
And I believe that more than anything, we need to make those conscious decisions. I mean, it's so cliche that like we all have the same 24 hours in a day. It's just kind of how you choose to do it, right?
Choose to use them, yeah.
Yeah. And it's more about like how you choose those things. And I've been trying to make more of a conscious effort lately to focus more on what is good and those things that actually make us happy and those things that we're grateful for.
Yeah.
And that's how I approach what I do, like literally in the moment, right? Mm-hmm. What an uncomfortable place the funeral home is.
Yeah, you said
don't want to be there.
Yeah, you said you're meeting people at their, well, there's different situations, right? You have people that, maybe they were prepared for it, like my grandmother. Like we knew that her time was coming.
Yep.
It's sort of, my grandma she was a rock star, man. She could get around. She was doing all the things, but she had a pretty bad fall, and broke her hip. And at her age, it was like she couldn't have surgery. And then once she became immobile, that's when the decline sort of started.
Sure, it happened in her head. And it was like, well, I can't do this now. What's the point?
Yeah. So, you meet people who they were possibly preparing for it, but they're still very sad because here's this person who's lived this amazing life and there's so many stories. And then there's unexpected.
Yep.
I remember a funeral that I went to in high school of a young man who took his own life. At Thompson Miller. I went to that. And I remember going to that because it was probably a year or so after my dad passed away. And it was so strange to walk into that same room and kind of walk up. And it was like a different casket. It was a different person. It was different flowers. It was different because I wasn't used to going to a lot of, I shouldn't say that. I had been probably to before my dad. I think I'd been to 3 already, maybe.
Sure, and you
But
did that as a kid, and like you would go with your family
Yeah.
when that happened.
Yeah. So I will say this. There was only one time where I wanted to leave, and it was because of something someone had said when they walked up to me, you know? And this is where I go to where everyone has a right to their opinions, to their religion, to their beliefs, all of that. Absolutely. But the minute someone starts pressing me to believe that, I'm like, okay, you've lost me now, and now I'm going to walk away. Because now I feel almost disrespected in a way, and that's kind of what happened. And not that that wasn't their intention, right?
Sure.
They were trying to explain. I said, you can't explain why my dad, who never had a mean thing to say about anyone, who would have done anything for anyone and never asked for a dime. You know, if someone was like, hey, I need my porch repaired and we can't afford to do it, my dad would have gone and done it, wouldn't ask them for anything. But my family struggled, you know, like, did we need the money? Yeah, we did. But I'm like that a lot too. I got that from my dad. People will say to me, well, how much are they paying you? And I'm like, I don't think they are. And they're like, what? And I'm like, you need to calm down. Because you're starting to get me all riled up, and I'm not, there's no reason to be riled up.
Yep.
Like, life isn't always about getting something in return.
It sure isn't.
I do things because, one, I've been asked to do it, and I think it looks good. And at some point, maybe I will get asked to do something down in like Pittsburgh, and they'll say, oh, we want to offer you an opportunity, you know, a part-time job or whatever. That's just how my brain works. Because I think you've got to put in the work, right, in order to get the reward at some point. Sometimes the reward is just being able to be a part of something wonderful. I don't know. I just don't.
We're very focused on
is
financial things anymore, and it's more because we want something cool, or we want to.
Yeah.
We want to. Oh, I want what they have.
Yeah.
I don't have what they have.
Yeah.
And that's ridiculous, and that's where it kind of comes back to like. When I'm meeting with a family and I can see that they're upset, that's where like love is a double-edged sword sometimes, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're so fortunate that you had that. And I'll say this, and this sounds like stuff I'm supposed to say, and it really isn't. It's true. It's like you are really upset because you loved someone a lot, and obviously that person loved you too.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that you had it, maybe it wasn't for as long as you would have wanted it to be. It's super easy for a guy like me on the other side of the table to say this to somebody, not going through it. Mm-hmm. But it's more about trying to keep that right attitude of remember what you had. If you weren't upset right now, you wouldn't have had what you had.
Yeah. See, I subscribe to that kind of talk.
For
like,
sure.
That's great. I'm all for that. I think that's true. Sometimes you need those people to remind you, and it kind of helps you process your grief, and everyone processes grief differently. I mean, I don't know how many years would go by where that day would come around. It's like leading up to that date, I was like, ugh.
I was dreading it.
Like, how am I going to feel? Am I going to wake up and I'm going to feel good and I'm going to feel, happy, or is it going to be rainy and I'm going to slide into that and I'm just going to stay at home and watch movies all day and cry? And I always watch Jurassic Park because that was the last movie we saw. The Father's Day before that, movies were like our thing.
Sure.
We found some VHS tape that had aliens on it. We don't know who taped it. We don't know how we got it. And then we became obsessed.
What is a VHS?
Google it. If anybody,
no, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No,
to
I know
you
know.
Get back to
It's
aliens.
funny.
You know what I mean?
But no, we found this, and then my mom's like, "I can't believe you guys watch those kind of movies," and she's like, "I can't watch that," and we thought it was great, and then we realized that it was the second movie, and the first one was called Alien, and we went to the video store and like found it and rented it, and it was this weird thing we had. So Jurassic Park was like the last Father's Day that he was alive. It was the original movie. So that's something I kind of always do,
Well, and that's super cool because, quite frankly, that movie holds up pretty good.
Oh, yeah.
Like the very first one. Like, it really does.
Remember the part where they first see the dinosaurs and they're in the Jeeps? That part and the music comes in? John Williams, man, that music comes in and you're like, oh, it's a brontosaurus. And you're like, oh my gosh, it's just insane.
Crazy. And
It's
it
crazy.
Like, looks so real
It
at
looks
the time.
So
And it's still,
real.
it looks pretty good.
Yeah, it
Based
looks
on
pretty
all
good.
the
Yeah.
tech that we got now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's really cool. And
Yeah, I'm a
but
nerdy
that's like such
dinosaur girl.
I'm a nerdy
Yeah, yeah.
nerd.
You
Like,
did- yeah, yeah,
right
yeah.
on. At this point, like, what's it really
It's
matter?
cool now.
It is. It hasn't been cooler. Who could wear white socks with sandals and be cool?
Yeah.
My daughter, every day to high school.
Yeah. It's a thing now.
Uh-huh.
Crocs. Does she wear Crocs?
Yes. Who doesn't?
Yeah, but I mean, the kids, the stuff, they're just making it so cool.
Doesn't
I'm
even
like,
matter.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, it doesn't.
And that's
yeah.
cool. Whatever.
But-
At least they feel comfortable to do that. And obviously that's not one thing they're getting bullied or made fun of for. And
Yeah.
and that's where a lot of those, like, all these things start with, like, mental health and stuff. And I think it's more about, you got to be a strong person. You got to, being in what you did with dancing and all that stuff. And me, I mean, I was the fattest kid in high school. Like, I was super overweight. And
And when we
it
grew
just
up,
hap-
that was like you were probably being bullied for that.
big time. And it was what it was. So, like, that's what made me develop into kind of my personality, too.
Mm-hmm.
So I could just make fun of myself first before anyone. I just beat him to the punch,
Yeah.
so to speak.
You're like Captain Obvious. Like,
right? I know.
yeah.
Go for comfort, not speed. What do you want from me?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Someone, you need a shirt that says that or something. Well,
Maybe.
no, I mean, I don't know. I would always I like looked like Gumby, you know, like that's how I was built. Like I always looked like Gumby. I always wanted to have more muscle and be stronger and have more curves. And someone said that to me once. They're like, "Oh wow, you're skinny," and I was like, "Captain Obvious over here." And people like looked at me and I was like, "What am I supposed?" I was like, "Have you seen me eat? Like I can throw down some food."
Well, you've always been kind of sharp, though, too. And you've never necessarily been, from what I can remember of you. And it's not like we were super close in high school, you know?
Yeah.
But you were a sequinette.
Yeah.
For sure. And, like, I was in the band and stuff.
Yeah.
So
I did band in 9th grade because I didn't make it onto the dance team in 9th
Really?
grade. Yeah. I auditioned and didn't get in, and then I was a trombone player.
no kidding.
Yeah. Wait, what did you play?
Trumpet.
Oh, that's right. We did talk about that.
Yeah, trumpet.
Yeah.
Still from time to time I'll pick it up, but, like,
Yeah.
I just don't do it as much anymore.
Yeah, I haven't in a long time. I have a pink trombone I found at a thrift store that's in my apartment. I have like a wall that I have that and my couple other instruments. And yeah, I remember putting on that uniform and having to watch all my friends. They got to put on the sequinette uniform and watch them. And I was like, because I was a dancer, like that's what I did, you
wanted
know?
to do. Sure.
And I wanted to be in the pretty dress and the, you know, 'cause
And you were. Like,
and then I
you-
ended up
you-
doing it. Yeah,
you
I did end up doing it. Yeah.
Absolutely, like,
And I did stage band, I think through 10th grade. And then in high school, I didn't do it because it was just by 11th and 12th grade, I like didn't have the time to
Yeah.
do that also. But yeah, I mean, yeah, but I did, do you remember when I did we talk about this?
Mary Catherine Gallagher. Are we allowed to say that even on the, like, is that,
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
copyrighted? All right. I don't know.
Yeah, we can say that. And you know, I'll say this too. I don't know. I just think back to like, I wish that I could, if I could say anything to my younger self, there's definitely like, I wish I could say like, don't worry so much about what other people think about you or what other people think you should be doing. Cause I did that my junior year, which is how you saw, cause you were a senior when I was a junior. And I remember the senior class, because it was Jessica Gregory and there was another Jessica that did the skit with me. And they were laughing the whole time we were doing it. They couldn't stop laughing on stage. I was like, they're like, we're not going to be able to not laugh. I was like, that's fine, whatever. I don't care. Like, we're in high school. But it was a very Napoleon Dynamite moment. So, and I think back to that, and that's who I was. I was goofy. I like to make people laugh, you know?
Sure.
And it came naturally to me. And I didn't do the talent show my senior year because the guy I was dating at the time didn't want me to do it. He thought it was embarrassing. And it was like a thing. It became
Between the two of you, like at that time,
like we
in your
almost
relationship.
like he was like, I'll break up with you and all
Still
this
with him?
stuff. Oh no.
I figured.
No. I mean, he's married with kids and they look really happy and that's great. Congratulations. You know, like
You're
that's
still
awesome.
smelling your armpits.
Yeah, I'm still smelling my armpits and single.
That was not where I was going with
no.
that.
That's funny
That
though.
was
If anybody
not where I was
knows.
going with that.
But But I've realized that, like, I am done trying to be something for someone else. Like, if I'm going to, every time I've ever been with someone, like, I accept them for who they are. Like, I take them wholeheartedly. I believe people. And I have so many times, even into my 40s, have realized, like, not everybody's honest. Not everybody is willing to really put themselves out there or follow through. I'm looking for follow through. Like, if you're going to say it, like, I know actions speak louder than words, but I'm looking for both. I'm looking for the words and the actions at this point. Because I was like,
I'm the exact same way.
yeah, I used to be like just actions, but they would be saying these things. I'm like, but they keep saying, and I know they want to, and they're just, and then you find out all these things, and you're like, oh wait, this isn't the truth. The truth is over here, and it's something completely different.
Well, do you find, like,
dating's hard in your 40s, so
I can't imagine, actually. I wouldn't even know the first way to go about doing it.
I don't want to do
thank
the app.
goodness,
I've tried the
you
apps,
know.
and I'm it's awful.
It was more about, and I kind of lost my train of thought here, but you believe in the goodness of people. You want to see and believe kind of what you're seeing right now. I'm real similar to that, and I don't know whether we call it naivety or what, right? Like, maybe we're a bit naive with that. I don't know if it's our upbringing in where we were raised, but, like, you've been all over the place, and I've moved away from Butler for some short period of time and moved back, but you start seeing how it really is. But I'm going to say something. I think that believing in the goodness, I think that being a smidge naive from time to time might hurt you once in a while, but it gets you further.
I think
being
so.
that way.
I think so too. I've realized that life is
People are nice.
I've realized that it's more of a marathon than a sprint. I think that, when we're talking, going back to mental health, you said something to me the other day when we were talking about how you and your wife went hiking and how that's something that's just so important, not just for, like, your relationship, right? For you two to spend that time together, but, like, getting outside and doing something, and we've talked about this at our age. I'm not going to run a marathon. I shatter both medial meniscus. So unless I go get stem cells put in my knees, I'm not running a marathon anytime soon. But I just really love that you guys are in that place, and it's such an important message for any other couples that is important. And you've recognized that being able to talk to her, about how you're feeling. And
I mean, ad nauseum, why my wife's with me is beyond me, for sure.
Oh, come on.
I mean that sincerely. Like, she's such a great individual, and we're certainly opposites of one another. But I do share with her how I'm feeling, and maybe more often than I should, other than just sucking it up and doing a couple things that I might just need to do. But getting that off your chest, being able to do that with, even if it's your significant other, if it's just a friend, anybody. I do believe getting some things off your chest, and but also at the same time, maybe you're that friend to someone else, or maybe I'm that person to someone else. And being able to recognize that, again, it is so, there's a head to the tail.
Yep.
Every time. And
we all need that.
We do.
Those people,
There's no shame in that. There's nothing about that should be shameful, or realizing, like, oh man, I need some help. I need to talk to someone right now just to clear my own head instead of thinking over and over the same stuff.
Yeah.
But no, getting out there and getting into nature sometimes is just where, and I don't care, like, what religious beliefs anyone has, but you got to realize when you're out in certain places, you're like, man, there is totally something way bigger than me out here right now.
Yeah.
And I think taking all those things in and just getting the time to not be on your phone or not be on the nerd box or any of those things, where it just it's so much nicer. That's why we like camping so much. Like, we get to places and, like,
I
the phone
love
doesn't
camping.
work.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's so great.
It does something to you, though, when you're almost forced to not have that. I imagine this, and I'm one of those people that I'm like, someday I will have this. Someday I will have, I don't know, who knows? Maybe I'll be adopting here in a year or two.
No kidding.
That's kind of a goal of mine.
Really? That's super cool.
I'm trying to get to a place financially where I can, I only have a 1-bedroom house right now. So I have to have a 2-bedroom, even to foster.
Mm-hmm.
I have to have a separate bedroom. So right now I'm trying to get into that place. I don't know if fostering is what I want to do, because my fear is that I'll foster like a baby or a really young child, and maybe it's a situation where, hey, maybe the parent is trying to get their stuff together, right, and get their child back.
Just like when we were at the community champion luncheon, right?
Yep.
Like with what they do.
Yes.
In that house
yes.
that they have.
So it's like, I
Sure.
don't want to take that away from someone, right?
But yet you don't want to get that ripped off you either.
But I don't want to have the first experience of being a parent and fall in love with this child, and then a year later they're like, oh, they're going back to the.
That's
you know
a
what I'm saying?
super fair way to think about it.
So if I had a partner, and I say I don't even know why I'm saying partner. I'm like a man in my life. Man, I'm looking for a man. This is not a
This
dating.
is a really good opportunity. Anyone that's watching this, just shoot a phone call to Laura.
It's hard. I mean, it's hard because, I mean, this year's been really hard in that aspect, because recently it kind of like started talking to someone, and then just out of nowhere just was like ghosted. And I did have the opportunity to see them again. I was just like, hey, like what? And they were like, no, that's not what I'm doing. I'm like, but it is. And like, if you don't like me, that's fine, right? And you don't owe me any explanation. Like, we're not boyfriend and girlfriend. We've been hanging out for like 3 weeks, whatever. But I deserve the respect of at least you not sending me a message saying, oh, I'm sorry I can't tonight, but I promise I'll make it up to you. And that's the last message I get, and then I get nothing. I deserve better than that.
You sure do. I think everyone does.
And it felt really empowering to walk up to this person and be like, hey, what's up? Hi. And then finally be like, hey, why did you ghost me? Because I've gone through enough of the mental game where I'm like, it's not me. Okay. Like, it's fine if you don't like me, because I don't want to be with someone that I feel like I have to chase like that. That's not what I'm doing. That's not how this is supposed to be. I know it can be better than that, but just like, be honest. I'm looking for follow through. I'm looking for honesty. And I'm just looking for someone that's just like going to take me for who I am. Like, I'll go to a Steelers game. We already talked about this. I'll go to a tailgate and eat hot dogs and drink beer, but then do I maybe want to go like to the ballet? Yeah.
For sure.
I like to go do that. Do I want to go out for a nice dinner? Yeah, totally. Will I sit at home and watch Netflix all day? Yeah. Like, I restore furniture. Like, I do woodworking
Really?
stuff. Yeah.
Huh. So like, you reupholster and stuff?
I
Or
have
you-
I have 2 pieces 3 pieces I want to reupholster. 2 are chairs that were my grandmother's.
Okay.
And they were these old chairs she had made like really nice. One is a rocker, one is, and I'm obsessed with them. And I financially, I really want to put the fabric into them, but I would like to take a class. But I used to take woodworking classes out in LA.
Huh.
I did some welding. I did like a live Edgewood table.
Oh, that's totally cool.
Someday I want to make like a big table for my dining room. I want to make the table and the chairs. And when people come and be like, I made this.
How are you not going to meet a dude right now based on what you just said? Carpenter, that, and
I don't know.
more than anything,
Like, you tell me.
I think most of what it boils down to is people.
You think people are scared?
No, yeah, for sure. But people are also selfish, and they're kind of like more about themselves right now, and maybe something happens in their life where they're the age we are, and they find themselves looking.
Yeah.
But because I watch my 5-year-old make friends, and it's effortless.
Yeah.
Effortless, because they're not thinking, they're just like, I want to go play with that person. And I mean, we'll do it like, we'll be at the most rando places, and she will just like go talk to somebody. Whereas like, you get to our age, because now we've lived life, we have a little bit of cynicism. Mm-hmm. We have these idiosyncrasies within ourselves and these guards where we're ready to more than embrace.
Yeah.
I definitely think it's harder to find friendship. It's harder, trust.
Yeah.
And that's really what you're looking for.
I think I'm a lot like your 5-year-old, though. I'll talk to anybody.
I'm right there with you.
Yeah.
I still, to this day,
But
will
I
talk
agree.
to anybody.
But
Yeah.
I agree with you. Yeah, you're right. And it's also
so much easier to make a friend. And we're just at that point where I don't know if it's scared more than it is like, not going to get me.
Yeah. Yeah, one of my girlfriends said to me, if you're looking for, if I'm too much for you, go find less. And I was like, I love you. Thank you.
That's pretty abrasive,
Yeah.
But it's true.
But it's true. And it's not like, hey, and I'm not mad at this guy. Like, I have no anger towards him. I'm like, hey, genuinely, you deserve to be happy. If you want to date someone else, that's fine. But if you're going to sit across from me and say that what you did wasn't ghosting me, okay, well, that's another reason why it would never work with us.
Well,
because that's just something, and maybe you genuinely weren't doing that and you were going to ignore me for 2 weeks and then all of a sudden come out of the woodwork and text me back. Like, what?
Well, let's tie this all in full circle with kind of what I do and where we're at with that in society. But it comes down to acknowledgement. It comes down to being able to just like, this ain't it. And that's totally cool, right? Like, how can it not be? Like, we have those things that happen every day of our lives.
Yes.
We're also now in that day and age where because communication is easier than it's ever been. Mm-hmm. At least the vehicle to do it is.
Yes.
But we're so much crappier at it because we're either sending a quick text or something like this, and then all of a sudden, there's no more text. And it's just so easy to, like, just rewind 30 years ago. You would have went, like, knock on that dude's door. You would have been like, hey, what's going on? And that's just not the way we are now. It's just so much easier to not acknowledge and then just keep going.
Yeah.
And I see that a lot sometimes with what we do. There's definitely situations where people just don't want to acknowledge it, or at least take the moment to do so. You have to do that. Your chapter obviously didn't end the way you wanted it to in your book.
Yeah.
And by not acknowledging it, at least, that next chapter might not be the way you want it to go either. Mm-hmm. And I think by just simply taking that minute to acknowledge, no matter what, just realize that there's people there to help you, realize that you're going to need it, and
it's interesting because I, when I said the whole, like, words and actions, right?
Sure.
Was getting the words like every day, even to other people was like, oh, I'm digging her, this and that. Like, all of this was happening. And then all of a sudden it was just like poof, into the wind.
Sure.
It was just like instantly. And I sort of come from a place where I'm like, hey, I don't know, maybe there's a lot going on. Has a business, has kids, has, so, okay. And then that wasn't it, And it's fine. It's just so interesting because I'm like, but you have an opportunity right now to say to me, like, hey, I don't know. I wasn't that interested, or is it a fear of how I'm going to react? Because I'm sitting across from you and genuinely like, and also as I was sitting across from him, he was on a date with another woman.
Pretty comfy, huh? You didn't really care though, did you? Or was there a bit of you that were like,
No. Because I thought, okay, well, there it is. That's it.
Yep.
And I think he was a little scared, and then I was just like, hey, what's up? And hey, what's up? And introduced me to her, and I was like, oh, nice to meet you. And I don't know if it's fine, right? Because I'm not chasing someone who's not choosing me. I'm not. Do you know what I'm saying?
You
like,
want to? Yeah,
and
unless
I'm not
like that's your drive in something where you're like you're into that sort of. You get what I'm saying there, right?
Yeah,
like,
I'm not playing a game.
Correct.
I'm not doing this like, oh, I'm gonna make you jealous.
Hey, world, like, look at this girl.
I'm not.
Come on, we're gonna manifest some positive vibes here for you.
Well, I do believe that there's someone really remarkable out there for me.
No doubt.
I really, really do. I have come very close. You know what I'm saying? Like, I've come close to, and that's my thing where I take people for who they are and where they're at. And I don't know if that scares guys, if it's like intimidating. I don't know. A friend of mine says, well, do you think you were intimidating? I was like, I don't know, but if I'm intimidating you, that's not my problem. I'm not like, I don't know. I don't know if that's a mean thing to say.
No, I think more than anything, but like, look, I've known you a very long time. You've always had that. You have some confidence. You believe. You have.
But I'm
that,
not like I'm the greatest. I'm just
not
like
ever.
that.
You're just kind of just who you are.
Yeah, yeah.
And sometimes when someone is that way, I think so
No.
often that we're always putting on a front for people for
Yeah.
some weird reason. When what people want more than anything is for you to just be you.
And
Like,
that's
just be you here.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
let me realize that I'm talking to like a total lay person, you know?
Yeah.
Like, you're not like some, and I say this as I'm wearing a tie, for goodness sakes, at doing this. But like, I'm serious, man. Like,
No, I know you are.
It's
I just
so weird.
But you are
because
always authentic too. I don't know. I
Always.
feel like you've always been authentic.
Always. As much as I can be, you
Yeah.
know, given the situation. And I think that certain personality and situationally speaking will dictate the type of individual that I can truly be. But I'm a goof.
Mm-hmm.
I want to have fun.
Yeah.
Like, I'm getting ready to go like watch a game with my friends, and that's one of those things I look forward to more than anything, is spending time with family and friends. I enjoy that wholeheartedly. It's a good time. It's good conversation. It's fun, and I'm super lucky to have friends like that I can go over and just totally be myself with. And that's one of those things that everyone really needs to have to keep the mojo going. Like,
yes,
you
I
gotta
agree
have
with you.
that.
I agree with you. Yeah, I just I don't feel like I ever understand when someone's not willing to like take care of this, you know, so they can just be that, right? Just be who you are. And if you're having it's okay if you're having a tough time.
For sure.
You know, if it's okay, like it's
Yep.
okay to not be okay. And I know that's becoming like a thing now. It's almost like trending, but it's true. And some people, maybe they do feel like they have to be very, I realized this last night. I emceed the Miss Butler County competition
How'd that
last
go?
night. It was good. I made a couple jokes. I at one point I was like, "Rah," you know, and then I was like, oh, I'm a comedian on the side. And then nobody laughed. And I was like, okay. So, you know,
Mm-hmm.
it was just, I was like, I'm not apologizing. I'm not competing. So, you know, I don't have to act a certain way. But when I did compete in Miss Butler County, the 2 years that I did it, the second year I did it was when Stephanie Vodenecker won.
Okay.
And the year before that was Jenna. I always forget Jenna's maiden name. But it was funny because when she won, we had like really clicked during that. And I was like, oh, you just won. Like, but I remember my onstage question. They would ask us our onstage question during evening gowns. So we're wearing our evening gowns. We had to like do this whole walk, and then you walk up to the microphone and you pulled a question out of a bowl that all the judges put questions into a bowl, and these strips of paper, and you would read it. Like, you'd look at it yourself, and then you'd hand it to the assistant, and they'd walk over to the podium to the MC, and the MC would read the question out loud, and then you would answer it. And I got the question, and it wasn't even a question. It was just like, give the definition of a hacker. The whole point of these questions was for us to be poised, right? To just answer the question very poised and sound educated. So I turned and looked and I said, well, the definition of a hacker is someone who illegally breaks into computer systems. And I just gave a really short answer. And I was really proud of myself because normally I'm like, I just go on and on and on. And I said it and nothing happened. And I threw out jazz hands. I went like this and I like bent my knee. I like was like in a bevel and I went, and then everybody started laughing. And of course the judges were like, and I was like, and I smiled and I stepped back from the microphone. And as I was walking out, I was like, well, I'm not winning this. Like, cause I just did that. Now I'm not winning. But that's who I am. Like,
For sure.
so maybe I wasn't meant to win because I'm sorry. I'm not going to, I had to learn that, like I said, back in high school. So I think that really affects our mental health, right? Feeling like you have to fit in and feeling like you have to be a certain way.
No doubt.
And it's, I think for what you do, especially, it's just so important, to take care of your mental health. And I just really appreciated that, when we saw each other last week, that you recognized that. You're like, And maybe it's because it's the season that it is, right? We're getting into like it's dark at what, 4:30 now?
Yeah, it's going to be dark in an hour.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Steeler game's going to start. We're going to be like in the dark. Yeah. The Ravens.
So we're doing this like crab themed food stuff.
Oh,
you
that's
know?
fun.
Yeah, so my goal here is when I leave to go get some Cheddar Bay biscuits from Red Lobster and get them over there, you know,
Okay.
and do
Yeah.
that. But I think it's kind of funny. They're super good dudes, and they always like have a nice spread, and they just try
That's
to make
fun.
it themed, you know. And
Yeah.
with Baltimore and crab and all that stuff. So I think
Uh-huh.
that's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's really cool.
I hope that the Steelers pull it out today. They have the chance to do it. It's hard to say though.
Yeah. Let's see what happens.
Yeah.
I there's a lot that I didn't get to say about you, but I'm gonna I
It's
think
fine.
I don't know, how
I'd
do you
rather-
feel? I feel good.
I think
We
this has
really
been
just
awesome.
talked.
We did, and that's what I really was hoping to do.
Yeah.
More than anything, you're very easy to talk to. You're certainly in the place that you need to be,
It feels like that.
professionally speaking, no doubt about it. So embrace that and embrace the fact that you're going to have like all these people hitting you up now to go on a date after we talked about this stuff.
Hey.
Do it.
I mean, yeah, sure, let's do that. I'll play pool.
If you
I'll
get
go
one,
bowling.
you call my wife and I, and we'll go out and do
Yeah,
something.
let's do a double date.
Let's do it.
Are you into like bowling and like?
Love it.
Yes, right.
Yep. My daughter just went bowling yesterday.
Did she?
She did.
Wait, so
yeah.
you have two daughters?
I do. I have a
5 and a-
junior in high school and a one in kindergarten.
Oof.
We really planned it that way too.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Are you being sarcastic?
Very much so. Yeah, very, very much so.
I was like, wait, I sense. Wait, I'm like sarcasm.
Yeah, big time. Yeah.
Hey, but listen, I just think you're such a wonderful person, and I love how you talk about your wife and your kids and your family, and you have a dog too.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm
I'm going to take him over to
dogs are
the
just-
game.
Yes.
His name's Axel. He's a
Yeah.
boxer.
Oh, that's a cool name for a boxer.
Yeah. So
Dogs are just the greatest, though, aren't they?
They are. They're a lot of work.
You're like, yeah.
They're just a lot of work.
Yeah.
I mean, he's awesome. He's a good boy, and more than anything, like him and my little one, they're like, he thinks she's a dog. So, like, it's just there because she's always screaming and laughing and running and all those things. Like, I call her
As she should.
Hurricane Everly. Like, she just flies.
Oh, that's a cute name.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. Well,
Well, thank you
I'm
for
happy
asking
for
me
you.
about them. And
yeah.
thank you
I
so
mean,
much for inviting me to come on and just talk. And if
Of
something
course.
comes up again where
yeah.
we can just sit down and chat and hopefully
It's good.
reach
It's good.
somebody that it makes them think a little differently or just helps them out in a certain situation. That's really what it is.
Well, yeah, this whole month, it's really being able to, talking about your feelings manly. That's what Movember is all about. It's
Too late for
making
me.
it manly. Oh, please stop it. His glasses match his tie, so I don't know
Not
what
manly.
he's talking about. Yes, it is. It actually is. So, maybe I'll get some dates out of this. We'll see. Hold on. The magic. Oh, you also need to get the applause too, because everybody gets the applause. So just for being a wonderful person. So
Well, and
you're just a wonderful
likewise.
person. So thank you. I'm so glad this happened. Yeah, I want to meet your wife. We're gonna have to. Let's manifest it.
Let's do it.
Let's manifest it.
Let's do it.
I feel
I'm
like I'm
down.
gonna have to start keeping people on track on my dating life. So we'll see. There's someone out there. Yeah.
For sure there is.
Yeah.
And again, it's sometimes it's not your timing. And you throw the right energy out there, that right energy is going to come back to you. And that's really what it boils down to. And it's hard to give out the right energy a lot. You got to be conscientious about that stuff. It's really easy to go down the bad path. The more you're happy, the more everyone else is going to be happy.
Yeah, I'm there. I'm ready for it. I'm like, all right, let's see. Let's see what happens.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Thank
You're
you.
awesome.
The feeling is completely mutual.
Yes.
Yep.
Thanks, man.
Right on.
High five.
High
Woohoo.
five.
All right. Thank you for tuning in to Alter Eagle. Join me every Monday for a new episode. And be sure to click subscribe so you don't miss a single episode. Follow us on Instagram at Alter Eagle Podcast. Until next time, stay safe, stay hopeful, stay kind.